All right, let's dive into the world of delivery drones. We're going deep with this one, folks, using that Wikipedia article as a springboard.
Yeah, a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Way more. Forget those pizza in the sky commercials because this tech is already doing some truly amazing things, things you wouldn't necessarily think of just from reading that Wikipedia article.
That's right, drone delivery goes way beyond takeout. We're talking like life-saving medical deliveries, resupplying ships miles offshore. Even the military's using them in some really cool ways.
It's mind-blowing to think about, and that's why I'm thrilled to have you here to help us connect the dots, really grasp the implications of this rapidly changing field.
Happy to be here. Ready to jump in?
Awesome. So we've all seen the ads, right? Drones zipping around, dropping off burgers and fries, that kind of thing. The article mentions companies like Food Panda running trials in Singapore and Pakistan, actually trying to make this a reality. And of course, who could forget the Taco Copter?
The Taco Copter, a classic, right?
Yeah.
A genius marketing stunt, even if it was, well, just a hoax.
Totally. But it shows how drone delivery, even in those early days, really captured people's imaginations.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. But here's where things get really interesting. While we're all waiting for our drone-delivered tacos, this technology is already making a huge difference in healthcare. The article highlights how drones are being used to deliver blood, vaccines, crucial medical supplies, especially in places with difficult terrain like Rwanda.
Yeah, Rwanda is a great example. I mean, the impact there is incredible. They've delivered, get this, over 7,000 units of blood by drone.
Wow, that's...
Think about that for a minute. 7,000 deliveries that might not have happened otherwise. We're talking lives saved, outcomes improved, all because of this tech.
That's amazing. And it's not just Rwanda. We saw it used for emergency deliveries in other countries, post-hurricane relief in places like Puerto Rico, even delivering essential stuff during the COVID-19 pandemic, remember?
Yeah.
PPE, tests, even vaccines, all by drone.
Absolutely. That Ghana example, using drones to get COVID vaccines out there, it's a perfect illustration of how this tech can reach remote communities, bridge those healthcare gaps, especially in emergencies.
It's incredible how quickly drones have gone from like a novelty to a crucial tool in healthcare.
Yeah, it really is. And what's even more fascinating is how they're being used, beyond just land-based deliveries. We often picture them buzzing around our neighborhoods, but they're actually revolutionizing logistics at sea, too.
You're so right. The article talks about Maersk, one of the biggest shipping companies out there, using drones to resupply ships offshore. Like, instead of sending boats, they're using drones. Think about the cost savings, the efficiency.
Huge game changer.
Yeah.
And it really makes you wonder, right? What does this mean for those traditional shipping methods? Will drones eventually replace those massive cargo ships? Or will we see, like, some kind of hybrid system?
It's a great question. And while we're on the topic of resupply, we can't forget about the military. The article mentions the U.S. Marine Corps experimenting with something called TRUAS, Tactical Resupply Unmanned Aircraft Systems, which is quite a mouthful.
Yeah, basically we're talking about drones designed to deliver supplies to troops in combat zones, getting those supplies there quickly and, without putting more soldiers at risk.
Right, and we're not talking about small packages here. These things can carry 150 pounds of supplies over a 9-mile range. Huge advantage in a dangerous situation.
For sure. Imagine this. Instead of sending a convoy of trucks through hostile territory, you send a drone. Faster, safer, potentially even cheaper.
It completely changes how we think about logistics and warfare.
Yeah, it's not just about replacing what we have now. It's about opening up totally new possibilities, new strategies. We often associate drones with high-tech industries, but they're actually making waves in a much older field, agriculture.
I was surprised by that, too. You don't automatically think of drones and tractors going together, but they've actually been using drones in agriculture for much longer than you might think.
That's right. The article mentions that this tech goes back to, believe it or not, the 1980s in Japan. They were using drones for crop dusting back then. Pretty ahead of the curve.
Wow. And now they're used for all sorts of things in farming. Monitoring crops, spraying pesticides, even managing livestock. They can cover these vast areas of farmland so quickly, efficiently, collecting data, doing tasks that would take humans, hours, even days to complete.
Exactly. And with climate change bringing new challenges to agriculture, unpredictable weather, water scarcity, soil degradation, the benefits of using drones, especially for what they call precision farming, become even more obvious.
Right. It's all about using technology to make farming more efficient and sustainable.
And it's not just efficiency. It's about data. using data to make better decisions, optimize resources, produce more food with less impact on the environment. So much potential there.
It's pretty clear that drone delivery is a lot more diverse and impactful than we might initially think. But with all this innovation comes a big question. How do we regulate it? How do we make sure this technology is used responsibly, safely?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it? And it's not an easy one to answer. The article mentions how the FAA here in the U.S. has been working on drone regulations for years. They started with really strict rules, but as the technology has gotten better, proven itself, they've gradually eased those restrictions, especially for commercial drone use.
Right. It's all about finding that balance, isn't it? You want to encourage innovation, let this technology thrive, but also need to make sure it doesn't create chaos in the skies or compromise public safety.
Exactly. And it's not just a U.S. thing. Regulations are different in every country, which adds another layer of complexity. Some countries, like the UAE, are all in on drones, even exploring their use for, government services. Imagine getting your passport delivered by drone.
That's wild. It sounds like sci-fi, but it might be closer than we think.
Who knows what the future holds?
Exactly. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's step back a bit and look at how we got here. It wasn't so long ago that the whole idea of drone delivery seemed like a distant dream.
Totally. Remember when Jeff Bezos, back in 2013, announced Amazon Prime Air, promising package deliveries in 30 minutes or less? People were, let's just say, skeptical.
Oh, yeah. I remember everyone was cracking jokes about drones dropping packages on people's heads.
Right. But that skepticism didn't stop Amazon. Look at them now. They've actually got a drone delivery service up and running in some U.S. locations.
It's amazing how quickly that vision became a reality.
Yeah, it is. And it wasn't just Amazon. The article also talks about Google's Project Wing, which started testing drones way back in 2014 in Australia.
Right. And they've come a long way, too. Wing has a commercial delivery service going in Christiansburg, Virginia now. They've even teamed up with companies like FedEx and Walgreens, which shows how drones can be integrated into existing delivery networks.
Yeah, that's a really smart approach.
So you've got Amazon focused on speed and Wing partnering with these established players. It seems like different companies are taking different approaches, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it speaks to how versatile this technology is, how it can be adapted to different business models, different needs in the market.
And it's not just the big tech companies either. The article mentions others like DHL with their parcel copter, UPS doing medical deliveries, and Zipline, who we talked about earlier, doing amazing work in Africa with healthcare logistics.
It's a global phenomenon at this point.
It really is. And it seems like it's only going to get bigger from here.
Oh, for sure. The potential is enormous.
That's what I'm excited to talk about next. The future of drone delivery. What does it hold? What kind of innovations are on the horizon? What are the biggest challenges, the biggest opportunities?
Well, let's take a deep breath and delve into those questions when we come back for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this incredible world of delivery drones, and last time we talked about how it's already being used in some pretty unexpected ways.
Yeah, for sure. Everything from those life-saving medical deliveries in remote places to those ships getting resupplied in the middle of the ocean. It's amazing.
Right. And we talked about how companies like Amazon and Google are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with drone deliveries.
Exactly. It's a diverse field, though. Lots of players, each with their own, unique approach. I think it'd be fascinating to look closer at some of these pioneering companies and see, what makes them tick, what sets them apart.
I'm all for that. I'm really curious to learn more about Zipline, actually. They're the ones doing that amazing work in Rwanda, right? Delivering blood and other medical supplies to these hard-to-reach areas.
That's them. Zipline's carved out a really interesting niche for themselves in the healthcare world. Their story is a great example of how this technology can be used to, really make a difference in people's lives.
So what is it about Zipline that makes them so successful? What's their secret sauce, so to speak?
Well, for one thing, they've gone with this fixed-wing design for their drones. That means basically their drones have wings, kind of like an airplane, instead of those multiple rotors you see in a lot of those quadcopter drones.
Oh, okay, so more like a mini airplane than a helicopter.
Exactly. And that design, it lets them cover much longer distances and fly at higher speeds compared to those multi-rotor drones.
Makes sense. Rwanda's a pretty hilly country, lots of, spread out communities. Being able to cover those distances quickly has got to be essential for those medical deliveries.
For sure. And their delivery method is pretty unique, too. They don't actually land the drone at the destination.
Hold on. how do they get the packages to the people then? Just drop them from the sky?
Not quite. They've come up with this really cool system where the drone comes down low to a certain altitude and releases the package, which is then lowered to the ground gently using a small parachute.
That's amazing. It means they don't need a landing strip or any kind of special setup at the delivery spot, right?
You got it. It's a system designed for efficiency, precision, which is really important when you're dealing with, time-sensitive stuff like medical supplies.
Clearly a lot of thought went into making this work in, these challenging environments. And the results speak for themselves, right? Like the article mentioned over 7,000 blood deliveries just in Rwanda.
That number is probably even higher by now. They've been expanding their operations so quickly, not just in Rwanda, but other countries too. They're running in Ghana and even have a pilot program here in the U.S.
Wow, that's seriously impressive. They've really nailed down how to make this drone delivery thing work in the healthcare world.
They've set a pretty high bar for sure. But it's a fast-moving field. There are other companies out there pushing the boundaries in their own ways.
Like Google's Wing, for example. They were one of the first to really start experimenting with this whole drone delivery thing, right?
Right. Wing, which is part of Alphabet, they've been testing and, refining their technology for almost a decade now.
And they've got that commercial delivery service going on in Virginia, don't they? Delivering things like coffee, medicine, straight to people's homes?
Exactly. They've been focusing on creating a system that can seamlessly integrate into, those existing urban environments. They've got those partnerships with companies like FedEx and Walgreens, streamlining the delivery process.
So it seems like Wing is more focused on urban deliveries, the convenience factor, whereas Zipline is tackling those rural areas' essential services like healthcare.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Wing's betting on drones, changing the game for those last-mile deliveries in cities, making it faster, more efficient, more convenient for everyone.
It's really cool to see how these companies are going after different parts of the market, coming up with these specialized solutions.
It shows you how versatile this tech is, how it could disrupt so many industries. Logistics, retail, healthcare, even government services. It's wide open.
The article mentioned that there are tons of other players in this drone delivery space besides the big names.
Absolutely. It's a growing, dynamic field with a mix of established players and those innovative startups popping up.
Right.
You've got companies like DHL experimenting with their parcel copter, UPS expanding their medical deliveries with drones, and then smaller startups like Mana and Subaru exploring those niche applications.
It's like a whole ecosystem for drone delivery springing up.
It really is, and it's competitive. Everyone's trying to figure out the best way to use this tech and build a successful business model.
Makes you wonder what the key to success is in this whole field. Is it about having the best tech, the most efficient delivery network? Or maybe it's about finding the right niche, solving a specific problem.
Probably a bit of all of that. You need a good understanding of the technology, a well-designed system for operating, and a clear idea of who you're serving, what their needs are.
Right, all comes together. But let's not forget, none of this would even be possible without some major leaps in technology, right? I mean, these drones are basically flying robots, navigating all these complex environments, delivering packages without any human involvement. It's pretty wild.
It is pretty incredible. The technological progress in this field has been really remarkable. It's a combination of those sophisticated sensors, powerful onboard computers, and those advanced algorithms that allow these drones to see their surroundings, make decisions on the fly, literally, and fly autonomously.
So break it down for me. How do these things actually work? What kind of tech makes all of this possible?
Well, they use a bunch of different sensors, things like GPS, inertial sensors, cameras, and even LiDAR, which is kind of like radar, but uses lasers instead of those radio waves.
LiDAR, isn't that what they use on those self-driving cars?
That's right. It basically lets the drones create a 3D map of their surroundings, even when it's not so bright out. That information then goes to those onboard computers, which use, these sophisticated algorithms to plan out the flight path, avoid any obstacles, and make sure that package gets delivered safe and sound.
It's mind-blowing to think about how much technology is packed into these little machines.
It really is. And it just keeps getting better. We're seeing improvements in battery life so drones can fly farther, increased payload capacity, meaning they can carry heavier stuff, and even the use of AI and machine learning, which is pretty exciting.
AI-powered drones, that sounds super futuristic. What kind of impact will that have, do you think?
Hard to say for sure, but the possibilities are huge. Imagine drones that can adapt to, changing weather, optimize their routes in real time, even anticipate problems and take care of them before they even happen.
Like giving them a brain so they can learn and make their own decisions.
You could say that. AI has the potential to make drone deliveries even faster, more efficient, more reliable.
It's amazing how far this technology has come in such a short amount of time. But with all this talk about robots and AI, let's not forget about, the human side of things.
Yeah, that's important. At the end of the day, it's people who are developing this technology, building these companies, deciding how it's used.
And it's people who will benefit from it, right? Whether it's faster deliveries, better access to healthcare, even new jobs created by this whole growing industry.
Exactly. The rise of drone delivery, it's not just about the technology, it's about the impact it has on society, the economy, our daily lives.
That's a perfect point to move on to the next part of our conversation, I think. We've talked about the tech itself, the companies involved. Now let's zoom out and think about those wider implications of drone delivery.
I'm all for it. I think this will be really interesting.
Me too. Let's dive into those societal and economic impacts of this exciting technology after a quick break.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been talking all about delivery drones, the tech itself, the companies using it in all these really interesting ways. Yeah, we've seen how it's changing things already. Healthcare, logistics, how stuff gets moved around the world. Pretty amazing stuff.
It is. But now I kind of want to zoom out, think bigger picture. What happens when these drone deliveries, they become the norm, mainstream? How is it going to change our cities, our jobs, even our daily lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's disruptive tech, no doubt. And disruption always comes with like a mix of challenges and opportunities, right?
Definitely. Okay, so let's start with the cities. What could drone deliveries mean for, the urban landscape, how our cities look and feel?
Well, one of the most obvious things is think about less traffic. Imagine fewer delivery trucks on the roads, especially during rush hour. Shorter commutes, less noise, maybe even cleaner air. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that sounds pretty great. Quieter, cleaner cities? Who wouldn't want that?
But there's a flip side to think about, too. What happens when the skies above our cities are just filled with drones, hundreds, maybe even thousands of them, zipping around all the time?
That's true. It could be like a whole new kind of visual and noise pollution. Instead of traffic jams on the streets, we could have drone traffic jams up in the air.
Exactly. And that brings up safety, too, right? What if a drone malfunctions, falls out of the sky? Or someone tries to, hijack one carrying a valuable package? These are things we got to figure out before drones are everywhere.
So air traffic management, drone security, it sounds like a lot to figure out.
It is. And it's not just about the physical space, above us. Drone deliveries could have a big impact on the economy, too.
How so? It seems like this industry would create a lot of new jobs, right? You need people to build these drones, operate them, maintain them, manage the whole delivery system.
You're not wrong. There's definitely potential for new jobs. But got to think about the other side of that, too. What about job displacement in those, traditional delivery sectors? What happens to all the truck drivers, the warehouse workers, the delivery people, if drones start taking over a lot of their work?
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Creates opportunities in one area, but maybe eliminates them in another.
Exactly. And that raises questions about, how do we prepare people for those shifts? Make sure everyone have the skills they need to succeed in this new kind of economy. It's not just about tech, it's about people adapting, too.
It's a good reminder that any new tech, there are always trade-offs, people who benefit, people who might be worse off. We got to try and, minimize those negative impacts while making the most of the good stuff.
Couldn't agree more. And that leads into another important thing to think about, the ethical side of all this. One of the biggest concerns people have is privacy.
Right. You mean drones with cameras spying on people in their backyards?
Not necessarily spying, exactly. But think about it. These drones, they're constantly flying over our neighborhoods, gathering all this data about us, where we go, what we do, our daily routines. It's all there.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that. It's kind of like having this constant surveillance system in the sky.
Kind of, yeah. And that brings up questions about, who has access to all this data, how they're using it. We need some clear rules, regulations to protect people's privacy in this whole drone delivery age.
You're right. It's easy to get swept up in the cool tech and forget about those potential downsides.
Absolutely. And there are other ethical things to think about, too, like what happens if drone deliveries become so easy, so cheap, that it becomes the standard way to get things, but only for people who can afford it.
So basically, the wealthy get their packages in minutes by drone, while everyone else is stuck with the slower, less convenient ways.
That's the worry. it could create this like two-tiered system, making those inequalities we already have even worse. Something we got to be aware of as this tech keeps developing.
It's clear this drone delivery thing is way more complex than just, figuring out how to make a drone fly from A to B.
For sure. It's about navigating all these, technological, societal, ethical challenges. It's about making sure this tech is used for good, that it serves people, not the other way around.
I like that. It's clear drone delivery has the power to change our world in some really big ways, but it's up to us to make sure those changes are positive, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this deep dive, it's been a wild ride. From those technical marvels of drone technology to all these complex societal and ethical implications, it's been amazing to see how far this tech's come and, imagine where it could take us next.
I agree. And as always, the most important things are those questions we're left with. How do we handle all that drone traffic in our cities? How do we protect people's privacy? How do we make sure everyone benefits from this tech, not just a select few?
Those are the big ones, for sure. Questions we'll keep wrestling with as this whole drone delivery thing takes off. And hopefully, by talking about them now, we can help shape a future where this tech is used responsibly, for the benefit of all.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, folks, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.